Welcome to ground control. I've got my mini P-47 out here again. For those of you who haven't seen it before, I converted this from the stock brushed motor and gearbox system to a brushless power system. It has very good power now, and the power system is pretty efficient, so I also get really good flight time with it. I had it out last time and I mentioned that the ailerons felt like they were a little twitchy at mid-stick, and I was thinking about increasing the expo on the ailerons. Well, I made a modification to it, and I increased the span of the ailerons by 50 millimeters or 40%. I cut the ailerons completely off of the wing, removed the foam hinges, installed plastic micro hinges, so I've got 2 micro hinges on each aileron. So now there's absolutely no resistance on those ailerons. They're nice and smooth. No resistance from the foam hinges because I cut the foam hinges completely off. It's not as pretty as it was, but I still think it looks pretty darn good. Alright, so I did not notice this when it had the foam hinges on the ailerons. I didn't notice this that much until I removed the foam hinges and installed these micro hinges where there's no tension on it. But what I found was that the aileron servo on this plane, the stock aileron servo, is way off of center. So if I give it left aileron and then center the stick, the left aileron is still about 2 millimeters higher than the trailing edge of the wing, and the right aileron is about 2 millimeters below the trailing edge of the wing. So the only way that you can straighten the plane back up, like from a left-hand turn, is to push it past center and over to the right a little bit to get it centered up. So I think with the tension that was provided by the foam hinges on the ailerons, that was actually helping the servo reach center, and it doesn't have that anymore. So I think I'm going to have to replace that aileron servo. My guess is it's probably an analog servo. I've never seen a digital servo so far off of center, but I've seen analog servos do that before. I've actually seen analog servos creep over time during the flight from center. So that's going to have to be fixed. The other thing that I was speaking about in the last flight was that I thought that I would need to put a little more down angle in the motor, because when I was coming out of a turn, and after I reviewed the footage, the video, the flight footage of the last flight, I noticed that I really only saw that when I was coming out of a left-hand turn, not out of a right-hand turn. So I think what was going on there, when I was making a turn and applying throttle and a little bit of elevator and using the stick to center the plane back up coming out of a turn, I think what was going on was, it's not that there's not enough down angle in the motor. I think the reason it was doing that because there wasn't enough right angle in the motor to counteract torque. Because I'm pushing the stick to the right to center the plane back up. The motor, without enough right angle on it, is going to produce torque. It wants to roll it to the left. Well, I'm preventing it from rolling to the left with the stick. So the only thing it has left to do is to raise that nose to counter that torque. So I did put in a couple of 1 millimeter spacers on the left-hand side of the motor mount to give it some right angle. So we'll see if that's enough. When I reviewed the footage last time, and I noticed that when I was in level flight and I switched it from gyro mode into full manual mode, that the nose didn't even twitch. It didn't pull up, it didn't pull down. So that kind of told me that it looks like it has enough down angle on the motor. So I think the reason it's doing that because it didn't have enough right angle on the motor to counteract the torque. But anyway, so that was the reason that the plane was feeling a little twitchy on the ailerons when I was at mid-stick, was because the aileron servo is just not centering up on it. So anyway, what I wanted to do, now that I've got the aileron span increased by so much, this should have an awesome roll rate now. If it doesn't, then I think the only way to fix that is going to be to put 2 independent servos on the ailerons with a linkage that's completely straight, so you get more movement on the control surface. But looking at how much control surface movement there is now without that tension from those foam hinges, plus the fact that the span of the ailerons has been increased by 40%, I would be really surprised if this little mini P-47 doesn't have a really good roll rate now. So that was the only complaint that I really had about this airframe, was the fact that they had the span of the ailerons so short, and because they were inbound on the wing, you just didn't have a lot of roll authority for nice axial rolls. It does good barrel rolls. It has the authority to do barrel rolls very well, but not the axial rolls. So I think that's going to fix that. So I think as far as the airframe goes, I think after this test flight, I think I'm going to be golden on the modifications that I've made to the airframe. But I have yet to see, we'll see if it's enough right angle on the motor to counteract torque, or if I need to put a little more right angle in it. But it is an awesome flying little mini P-47 with this brushless power system. So let's take it out to the field and test these this adjustment and this modification that I've made on the ailerons and see what we end up with. So I'll see you out in the field.
Alright, last flight on the mini P-47 this morning. Brushless mini P-47. I can't stop flying it now that I've got everything working the way I want on it. Other than the need to replace the aileron servo because it won't center. But anyway, I've got it in gyro mode. Let's launch. Also, I discovered we're in manual mode now. Didn't even see it twitch. I also discovered that after I got that motor angle corrected on it, I can do turns just doing bank and yank instead of having to use the rudder. That's just bank and yank there. Now that there's no motor torque issues, it does turns bank and yank just fine. Now I had the same issue when it was stock, so I'm guessing that the motor angle when it was stock was not correct either. Now watch my roll rate. Awesome, huh? And I've got one of my little 300s in here now. I like flying it with the 400s better, because I like the weight of the 400s better than the 300s. I think the plane feels a little more locked in. Nice tight axial rolls now. I've got a good roll rate with it. Whee! Is that awesome or is that awesome? Bank and yank turn. I also no longer have the problem with the nose kicking up coming out of the turn now, since there's no motor torque issues with the angle that I put in the motor. Pretty well behaved in some wind in full manual mode, isn't it? Look at that. Coming downwind now. That's not even full throttle, guys. Whoa! I almost clipped the truck. Did you see how close that was? Oh my. That would have been terrible. I mean, that was close. I love that roll rate now. Downwind. Big, huge wide loop. About 90% throttle there. Bank and yank turns. What do you guys think of that P-47 now? That was a tight turn in full manual mode. I am loving this plane now. Isn't that awesome? It just kickstarted out. I was not even using rudder there. I'm not using rudder now. They just bank and yank. Wind's picking up a little bit. Bank and yank turn right there. So yeah, with that motor thrust angle, you know, with all the, look at that, with all of the motor torque issues gone now, it is much better behaved. Absolutely awesome, guys. I'm out here flying in 4 to 5 mile per hour wind right now. And it's gusting up to about 6. But isn't that awesome? Okay, I just put it back into gyro mode there. After I almost did an unintentional touch and go, trying to reach my switch. Alright, so our walkers just came through. So let's bring it back around and land it. Since I just have a 300 milliamp hour LiPo in here right now. Although I have to say, the way I've been flying, they've held up pretty well. Boom. Oop. Hey, tail went back down. Awesome. So I am just extremely happy with the way this project has turned out. I have an awesome roll rate now. They're very axial. I have a ton of power on this for doing, you know, just about any type of aerobatic maneuver that you want to do with it. What else? The motor angle now is right where it should be. I can do turns, bank and yank. I don't have to use a rudder, and it still makes nice, smooth, coordinated turns just doing bank and yank. So, yeah, I'm extremely happy with the way this project has turned out. And it is an absolute blast to fly. I am having a lot of fun with it. Unfortunately, that was my last battery pack of the day for this bird. But I made good use of it. A lot of fun. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the air.